£55 million. He is 31 years old and owns his own airline.
Oh, James, good morning. How are you?
This is Stelios Hadjianou, the boss of EasyJet airline, and he thrives on stress.
Some people crack under pressure. Other people have the ability to actually use stress in their favor and actually do things.
For others, though, stress is something to be avoided at all costs.
How long have I been in there, Pat? About 30 seconds. Oh, they're quite good then, aren't they?
Flotation tanks are not just the preserve of the fabulously rich. They're the latest in what's becoming a booming trade in anti-stress therapies. For busy city people like Lucinda Labes, they're now a part of modern living.
Well, you feel, I would say spaced out, but that implies that you feel slightly foggy when you don't. You feel enervated and much more responsive to your surroundings.
If you don't like getting your body wet, then £40 an hour buys you a session with someone called a cranial osteopath.
Tell me if you can feel anything at all with this manoeuvre.
It's another increasingly fashionable stress buster. The idea is to manipulate the skull to relieve pressures elsewhere. Users say there's nothing like it.
Oh, I'll just feel as if I'm sort of walking on air and feel a different person. It's quite, you know, my head will feel much freer. My brain will be much clearer.
If therapy is not your cup of tea, there's always the executive toy. Sales are booming, ranging from these battery-controlled tropical fish to a plastic head that you can squeeze the life out of, right up to these high-tech soothing plasma plates. This one will set you back nearly £300.
Have they made any offers yet or not?
Back at EasyJet, Stelios Hadjianou and his executives are playing for real, holding one of their regular standing meetings. No chairs means no hanging around. Stelios isn't one for the new range of therapies to improve the efficiency of his company. Stress, he says, is a positive thing.
It's difficult really to think how you can create big things without stress. It just doesn't happen. You need the stress to keep you going, to go through these enormously difficult circumstances.
You've obviously learned a little bit about how stress does affect us.
But the counter-stress culture is now invading everywhere, right up to the boardroom. This session teaching executives relaxation techniques.
Taking good, deep breath in.
Signing up for corporate courses costs around £300 a day, but organisers insist they do work.
I would say that yes, stress does exist. There's a lot of research into stress going on at the moment, and because it is a problem, then it obviously needs solutions, and we're here to provide the solutions.
At the end of his days, Stelios Hadjianou relaxes without therapy. But more and more of us are turning to an army of counsellors and therapists poised to help us avoid paying a high price for our high-pressured lives. Duncan Kennedy, BBC News.
Within the last hour, we've received reports from the United States that 2 men have been arrested and accused of plotting a bacterial attack on the New York subway. According to the FBI, the men, who are members of the white supremacist group, the Aryan Nation, were taken into custody in Nevada.
2 supermarket chains, Kwik, Save and Summerfield, have announced they're to merge. Summerfield already owns Gateway supermarkets, and the new group will have combined sales of £6 billion a year. It's thought other mergers could be on the way, involving some of the biggest names in the high street.
This is an alliance at the bottom of retailing's Premier League, with 2 struggling stores groups hoping to find strength in numbers. The combined company will have 1,400 shops, employing 70,000 people, who will now inevitably be worried about what the merger might mean for them. Unions meet the 2 companies tonight.
As far as the membership are concerned, we've made it clear that we'll be raising their concerns about job security as a prime objective at this evening's meeting.
Out-of-town superstores now account for 2/3 of all grocery sales, offering a massive range of produce to people with cars. Companies like Kwik, Save and Summerfield, the owner of Gateway, which have concentrated on high street stores, have found themselves swimming against a powerful tide.
They are under pressure. It does help relieve the pressure. It does make them bigger. It gives them scope for savings, to become more efficient and to become more competitive in the overall marketplace. But that doesn't mean to say that their problems are over. They're going to have to run very hard to stand still, if you like.
Tesco and Sainsbury's dominate Britain's grocery sales. The combined turnover of Summerfield and Kwik Save together will place the merged company only 5th. But today's get-together is something of a sideshow. The unthinkable may be about to happen. The seemingly unassailable fortresses of Tesco and Sainsbury are under siege. The upstarts, Safeway and Asda, are rumoured to be planning a merger which would create Britain's biggest grocery chain. Peter Morgan, BBC News.
A Roman Catholic priest who was convicted of indecently assaulting a 13-year-old girl has been sentenced to 21 months in prison at Cardiff Crown Court. Father John Lloyd had been a parish priest for 32 years. In sentencing him, the judge said there were few grosser breaches of trust than when a priest sexually abuses a young child.
Rail passengers are unhappy with the service they're getting from many of the new companies, according to a report from the regulator of passenger rail services. Dirty trains, overcrowding and poor information top the list of customer complaints. The report, based on surveys carried out by the train operating companies themselves, says that although 10 companies have improved, another 7 have got worse.
Businesses and organisations aren't doing enough to protect themselves against computer hackers and fraudsters. The warning comes from the Audit Commission, which says the spread of computers and the increasing use of the internet has multiplied the danger of computer intruders.
The men here are working in the technological equivalent of a hospital isolation ward. Their task is to tackle some of the 15,000 viruses which corrupt or destroy computer programs. These unwelcome invaders are the most common form of computer abuse suffered by organisations across the public and private sector. Though often crude and untargeted, they can do thousands of pounds worth of damage, and some are more persistent than others.
There are a hardcore of 10 or 20 or 30 viruses that appear over and over and over again, including viruses like Form, for example, which is at least 7 or 8 years old. So once released, once in the wild, it's very hard to get a virus back in the box.
Hooking up to the internet has made organisations much more vulnerable to abuse. Hacking incidents have increased threefold since the Audit Commission's last survey. Those practised in the art say the big companies are often the easiest targets.
They would say, we've spent £10 million on our computer system, therefore we must have a secure system. When all it comes down to, it could be one person responsible for the ultimate security of that system. And it only takes a few things missed here and there to allow access to the entire world.
Our dependence on computers is increasing. The Health Service and local government between them spend £1.5 billion a year on information technology. But the Audit Commission says despite safeguards, not enough managers take the threat of abuse seriously.
You can't just hope that someone lower down is getting on with it. There has been a lack of awareness at